Are you considering moving to Tampa but are worried that all the bad things you've heard about Florida are true? In this video series, I'm sharing all the bad things about living in Tampa so that you can know what to expect ahead of time. So I had so much to cover that I'm actually breaking this into a 6-part video series to make sure that I go over everything. So I'm talking about things like hurricanes and flooding, overcrowding and traffic, crime, bugs, alligators, and if the Florida man is a real thing. By the way, my name is Shay Green and I'm a realtor with Impact Realty Tampa Bay. If you have any questions about buying or selling in the Tampa Bay area, please don't hesitate to reach out. I moved to Tampa several years ago and I absolutely love it, but there definitely are some downsides. And in this video, I'm talking about one of the biggest drawbacks of living in Tampa, which is hurricanes and flooding. So hurricane season here is typically from June to November, and there's pretty much no way to avoid a hurricane or a tropical storm during this time. Every year since I've been here, we've at least experienced a tropical storm. Fortunately, I haven't experienced anything crazy, but that threat is always there. I don't live super close to the water, so I've never experienced flooding or any large impacts from these storms. And most people that were born here in Florida actually don't really take hurricanes seriously at all, and they kind of joke about them. They throw hurricane parties and they're really chill about them, which I think is really funny. I think part of it is because Tampa hasn't been hit directly with a hurricane in over 100 years. So even though we do get some minor effects of these storms, we haven't seen any major impacts. Coming from another state, I was super worried about hurricanes, so I do prefer to err on the side of caution and make sure that I'm prepared. And if you're in the same boat, there are actually so many things you can do to prepare for a hurricane ahead of time and to reduce the likelihood that you'll be impacted by the storm. So I'll link some resources in the description that talk about hurricanes, hurricane preparedness, and also I'll link a storm tracker guide that I use every hurricane season just to keep an eye on where the storms are at. And if you do decide to buy a home here, there are a lot of things you can do to decrease your likelihood of being impacted. So you can get hurricane shutters, you can get garage door braces, you can get hurricane clips. And honestly, the thing that plays the largest role in whether or not you'll be impacted by a hurricane or flooding is where you choose to live. And that leads me to the topic of flood zones. So in Florida, the Fema flood zone designations are a big deal. I've talked about this in another one of my videos that I'll link, but where you choose to live and the flood zone that is designated by FEMA impacts whether or not you need flood insurance. And the reason it impacts your insurance is because the different flood zones indicate how likely that area is to flood. So for instance, my home is in a flood zone X, which is the best flood zone, which means there's a very, very low likelihood that it will flood in the 30 years of me having a mortgage on this home. So by specifically choosing to live in areas that are flood zone X or aren't a super high flood zone designation, you can greatly reduce your likelihood of flooding. And there are some areas here that just due to elevation and nearby waterways, they can flood even just with a heavy rainstorm. So you'll want to be really careful and talk with a realtor if you're planning on buying here, and I can walk you through flood zones and where you should be buying if you want to avoid the higher likelihood of flooding. All in all, hurricanes and the potential of flooding is just a part of life living in Tampa. I think that the pros far outweigh the cons, but that's something that you'll have to decide for yourself. So if you are concerned, go ahead and check out the resources that I'll leave in the description to better prepare yourself so you know what to expect before moving here. Thank you so much for watching. See ya.